Hey guys, so in this video I am going to be teaching you how to find zeros of polynomial functions when a leading coefficient is not equal to 1. So when the leading coefficient is not 1, the list of possible rational zeros can increase significantly. It's important to remember that you're going to have your factors of your constant from your polynomial and divide it by the factors of your leading coefficient. So we're going to learn via example. We're going to list all the possible zeros of the function, then determine which are zeros. So if we look at our equation, our constant is 8 and our leading coefficient is 3. So the first thing we need to do is find factors of 8 and divide that by factors of 3. So remember, your factors can be positive or negative. So factors of 8 are going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, and plus or minus 8. And your factors of 3 will be plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 3. Now we need to simplify to figure out all potential zeros. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. 2 divided by 1, 4 divided by 1 is positive or negative 4, and then 8 divided by 1 is plus or minus 8. So now that we have a second factor, we have to do that again. So we're going to have 1 over 3, 2 over 3, 4 over 3, and 8 over 3. So all of these numbers are potential zeros, which is a lot. So what we do now is we use synthetic division to determine the rational zeros, or a rational zero. And we can start with anything. I'm going to start with 2. So this is what I'm dividing by, and I'm going to write my leading coefficient, 3, followed by negative 7, negative 22, and 8. So bring down the 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 7 plus 6 is negative 1. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 22 minus 2 is negative 24. And we can just stop there because this is not going to have a remainder of 0. So we could try negative 2. Start by bringing down your 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 7 minus 6 is negative 13. Negative 13 times negative 2 is 26. Negative 22 plus 26 is 4. And 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And 8 minus 8 is 0. So we have a remainder of 0, which means we have a factor. So I can rewrite this now as x plus 2 times what we're left with, 3x squared minus 13x plus 4. Now it's important to notice here is we have a quadratic. So instead of using synthetic division to factor this, we can just factor this by grouping. So remember, you can do a times c, so 3 times 4 is 12, and our b value is negative 13. So what multiplies to 12 and adds to negative 13? It's going to be negative 12 and negative 1. This other factor needs to come down, so we have x plus 2 times, and I'm just going to start factor by grouping, so 3x squared minus 12x minus x plus 4. Separate this into groups. Take out the greatest common factor, so we'll have 3x times x minus 4 minus 1 times x minus 4. And our final factors are going to be x plus 2 times 3x minus 1 times x minus 4. So now these are our factors, but we were asked to find rational zeros. So to find our rational zeros, we could use the zero product property. So we're going to have x equals negative 2. If we set 3x minus 1 equals 0, we'll get positive 1/3 and positive 4. So those are our rational zeros. Now you can check this by graphing it on a graphing calculator. You'll graph your original, let's go all the way up, h of x function on the graphing calculator and make sure that you're getting these 3 rational zeros, but you're not going to be able to do that on your quiz. So this is only useful during homework. So now we're going to work on solving a polynomial equation given a word problem. So this is example 3 on page 121 if you don't want to write the whole thing down. After the first half hour, the number of video games that were sold by a company on their release date can be modeled by g of x equals 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 2x, where g of x is the number of games sold in hundreds, and x is the number of hours after release. How long did it take to sell 400 games? So something to take note of, games are sold in hundreds. So if we're wondering how long did it take to sell 400 games, we can think of this, we're solving for g of x to equal 4. So because we want g of x to equal 4, and we know that g of x currently equals 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 2x, we can substitute 4 in for g of x. So we'll have 4 equals 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 2x. Now we need to just move over our 4 so that it's equaling 0. And now we can apply the rational zeros theorem to our new equation. So I need to take factors of 4 and divide it by factors of 2. Sorry, negative 4. So that's going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, and plus or minus 4 over plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2. So when we divide 1 over 1, we get 1, 2, plus or minus 4, and then we'll get 1/2, plus or minus 1/2. And 2 over 2 is 1, and 4 over 2 is 2, and we already have those written down. So these are our possible rational zeros. And now we'll just use synthetic division. So I'm just going to start with 1. And what are my leading coefficients? There they are. So 2, 4, negative 2, negative 4. Bring down my 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. And 4 times 1 is 4, which means we have a remainder of 0 right off the bat, which is super nice. So this is going to factor to be x minus 1 times what we're left with. So 2x squared plus 6x plus 4. Now that we have a quadratic, we can just factor this. Hopefully you recognize that these are all even, so we can factor out a 2. That's just going to go straight on the outside. And we're left with x squared plus 3x plus 2. And now we can just factor this the way we know and love. What multiplies to 2 and adds to 3? So that's going to be x plus 2 times x plus 1. So now that we have all of our factors, so this is factored form, we know that the zeros are going to be 1, negative 2, into negative 1. But there can't be negative time, right? Because if we go all the way back up to our question, we're wondering how long it takes to sell 400 games. So these are all the potential answers, but only one of them actually makes sense, and that's going to be this one. So because time can't be negative, our conclusion is it took 1 hour to sell 400 games. And that's it. So for a problem like this, you set up your equation, make it equal 0, and then apply the rational root theorem. And then when you finish going through and factoring, whatever 0 is going to make sense for the problem is going to be your solution. And if you don't have a word problem, then you could have multiple solutions.